All things in the US are not just science-based in terms of drug decisions. There's a lot of politics. One of the most popular, readily available drugs in America is alcohol. That is the most dangerous substance, according to the largest drug safety study ever done in Lancet 2010.
When you work with a therapist, quite often they are not allowed legally or in their state
To touch.
or to be connected. And of course, we
Unless
talked
they're
about
trained with a
with
special
consent.
certification. Yeah.
But yeah, unless you're what?
Unless you have special certifications. I have a certification that I can touch you.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, healing is 4 layers, and transformation is 4 layers. It's psychological, it's emotional, and it's somatic, and it's spiritual. Trauma is basically just stuck emotion that handcuffs you from being your fullest, most authentic, most powerful self.
Are there people out there that have been doing IFS therapy for 20 years and have way more certifications than me? Yes.
This is Willpower.
Today's episode is a special one. It's not just a conversation, it's a return to the heart of the work I hold most sacred. I have the privilege of sitting down with someone who has profoundly shaped my evolution as a guide and practitioner. Mike Zeller is a transformational coach, an architect of emotional alchemy, and a true wizard in the realm of reframing, what many know as neuro-linguistic programming or reframing, reparenting. He has an uncanny ability to take these stories that keep us small and powerless or afraid and help us see them through a lens that makes possibility feel inevitable. Mike blends internal family systems, somatic intelligence, and careful intentional use of molecule medicine to help people dissolve long-held patterns and reconnect with who they are at their core. And what I admire most is his integrity, the way he works with leaders. And in a landscape where this work can easily become reckless or hyped or unsafe, he just brings a rare combination of steadiness and ethics and devotion. He really loves up on his clients and knows that the real magic isn't in the molecule alone, it's the container, the guidance, and the courage to coach people so that they can meet themselves fully. And I've seen firsthand this work, how he supports people. I've been in a container with him this entire year, learning from him every step of the way. And this is the way forward. We talk today about MDMA, the use of psilocybin. We talk about the language of psychedelics and what's going on in the culture currently, how these tools can help so many people through trauma, through past experiences, and bring more hope into the conversation. I hope that this conversation expands you and opens you and gives you permission to imagine what becomes possible when fear softens, your heart opens, and your inner system can finally feel safe to step into your highest self. Such an honor to be here with Mike. Let's dive in.
Amazing. We're here, Willpower Podcast. This is a really pivotal, important interview for me today with Mike Zeller, who's a mentor and become a dear friend. And welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, and you are a gem, so I cannot wait to connect even further. Every time I get to connect with you, I love it.
Yeah. It's been you've been instrumental in my healing over the course of the last year and a half, and really want to shout out what today's show is about, covering some deeper dive on MDMA therapy, IFS parts work, psychedelics in general, in the landscape of helping people recover from their childhood trauma. I don't know what your feeling is, but I'd love to have you chat a little bit about this, conversation about trauma. I think when I went to an EMDR therapist for the first time, she made me make a list of my traumas. Yeah. And I thought, well, no one really held me down and burned me with cigarettes and beat me when I was a child. How lucky. And her first question to me was I know you made a list, but do you think that you have trauma? Yeah. And so I'd love to just address that, because I think some people out there are I don't have any trauma.
Yeah. So let me expand the concept of trauma just a tad, because sometimes we're oh, I didn't get beat, I didn't get sexually traumatized, I didn't watch someone die or whatever. Trauma is basically just stuck emotion. And so for you, for example, your journey, a huge chunk of it was about the grief, the sadness of the loss of relationship. And you can find, I, as an entrepreneur, when I went through a bankruptcy and lost $1 million, I had trauma around starting another business. I remember actively overcoming my internal resistance. We can have emotional resistance of moving forward on the third or fourth date, not because we don't like the person, but because it feels scary to be vulnerable. And so just stuck emotion, if we actually... Really, trauma that's what it is. It's stuck emotion that handcuffs you from being your fullest, most authentic, most powerful self.
Yeah, absolutely. And to lean into that a little bit and understanding, and you've had a wildly successful career and all these things, but I would love for you to share just briefly the catalyst for change for you coming off of this executive leadership coaching sort of only container into bringing more medicine into the mix, this work that you're doing now.
Yeah. So like I've started over 20 different ventures. Like I had 6 active ventures at one point with 55 employees. We were doing, 8 figures in revenue. And then it all crashed, kind of. Like one thing, it was kind of a slow snowball over like 2 years. It just unraveled. But it was really an unraveling to re-ravel into who I really am and my life purpose. So then I remember essentially being at my pit of despair. And we're in Florence, Italy. It's a month after our wedding. And like most of my bank accounts are empty or I have very little money. And I'm like, hey, it was 2018. I'm like, I had just lost my cash cow business 2 months before. And so like shit was hitting the fan on all the corners. And I had this huge expense with 2 weddings. Like we had a Nashville wedding and a Italy wedding that I had to pay for, most of it. My parents helped some, and then my wife's parents helped some, but the majority of it was me. And plus my income dried up. And I remember in that moment, my wife challenged me. She's like, babe, the thing that lights you up the most, that you have the deepest work, that you have the deepest level of fulfillment is ultimately in your coaching. So that's 2018. Then we fast forward, go through this rebuild, reset period. My wife gets pregnant, activates some of her childhood depression, complex PTSD. She had very traumatic, still one of the most traumatic childhoods of and I deal with some of the worst cases. So she had attempted suicide multiple times by the age of 21, but it was good for essentially all of our relationship. Well, starts having flashbacks, like before the baby, when the baby comes, she's cleaning the dishes and she just remember all this overwhelm and this scary and this not being seen, heard, being squashed, being abused, all these things. And all these things are happening. And then our daughter would cry, and it literally my wife would start breaking down like within seconds. And so I started carrying our daughter into the street when she was crying, or I'd be like, babe, get out of the house, get out of the house. I'd like be commanding her, leave, go now, because I would see her system just fall off a cliff and she would spiral. And then she'd be like, 2 hours later, I don't want to be alive. I don't want to be a mom. This is too much for me. Life is too much. And you stack it on like some neurodivergence, and she's a highly sensitive person. And then you stack complex PTSD and severe fatigue, which she also had, like severe postpartum, which was the NAD that we've talked about. And so then I looked into psychedelics, and that's because really the NAD gave her energy back, because we got our NAD optimized, and NAD is a core molecule for 500 cellular processes. So long story short, she was really depleted. I was really depleted. Most people going through high stress seasons, or they just stay in a high stress state. They're burning out their metabolic capacity. So you boost that back up. Like it was like we turned back the clock 20 years. But then our daughter would still cry and would still trigger her childhood trauma. And that's when I really wanted to. I had her in IFS, somatic psychotherapy, and she was putting in the effort. She was really working hard at it, very courageous, but she would be better for like 6 or 7 hours and then be around my daughter, and then boom, it'd be re-triggering. Yeah. So I was like, there's something deeper that the therapy alone is not getting to.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's beautiful that you bring up the IFS work, which is Richard Schwartz's work, but just also because you're doing this magical thing that is incorporating what many people aren't, which is the psychedelics or the molecule of MDMA plus IFS parts work therapy, plus many of your years of NLP and all the work you've learned about, leadership activation through Tony Robbins and the life of all these incredible people. And it's something that is really, I think it's a felt thing when you experience a session with you that is like almost hard, indescribable, because there's a somatic response in the body. There's a way you hold a container. And I would like to attribute that in some way, not to put words in your mouth, but to the experience that you had in helping your wife heal and yourself heal and your family heal through all of that. And that there's a resonance there. Right. And so I know that story to me and to any listeners feels pretty intense, and also like in some way a gift to be able to have you be here now.
Thank you. And I do feel like I'm in my calling, and it's like harnessing all of who I am and some deep knowing and like whatever ancestral wisdom or something, I don't know. But in that, really, we went through a 6-month season of working heavily with psychedelics and with the trauma work and all that. Kind of just built and built and built. But when we would do like regular ceremonial work with regular psychedelic guides, They didn't know how to do the parts work and the somatic work and the trauma work. I literally was arm twisting them as best as I could I'd say, guys, Sarah is getting activated when our daughter cries. This happens, whatever. It's PTSD. And I'm confident. I just know, based on my reading, my understanding of subconscious, if you will do trauma work with her, parts work with her while she's on the medicine, it will work. It could get her cured of incurable complex PTSD. They wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because they were like, they didn't want to, they just didn't know how.
Yeah.
And that's when I talked to her trauma therapist into doing it, who you met, who's amazing. I love her. But after that session, like, my wife still only had one full guided session. And during that session, that's when it kind of sealed the depression healing, her complex. Now, the other work led up to it. That was the day that we say she got cured of depression and mostly cured of her complex PTSD.
Yeah.
And then that's when we got her life back.
Yeah. And I think, is that the moment that a light bulb went off for you, that there's like something deeper here?
And it was confirming my intuition of like, this is going to work.
Yeah.
In the science. And I didn't know all the map studies and all that jazz at that time, but I was reading them. I was binging trauma, IFS, psychedelics. And then Kristin said she didn't want to do any more sessions because it's off the books and all that. I was like, I can't stand by and let people I care about suffer, which were a lot of my clients and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm going to step in and start helping people.
Yeah. It's such a courageous thing too, right? And this is something I imagine you learned over time and all these businesses and all of your skill as a leader, is to say the thing that even I'm going through now in this like first year of leaning into this work myself, is like, okay, there's a specific thing that I bring to the table. And are there people out there that have been doing IFS therapy for 20 years and have way more certifications than me? Yes. Yeah. But can I aggregate all of this data and the experiential that I've seen and lean into this work and become so masterful at it? And I think the other thing I want to address initially is, like, I just sent my mom the book, How to Change Your Mind by Pollan, just because she loves all his other books. Sure. And I was like, well, if she likes him, she'll read the book. And as I continue to do this work, I made a commitment to myself that anyone that I come in contact with, because there is the notion of illegal drugs and all these things and a stigma that can exist around it, even though it's been used in so many clinical settings, that I would be open about it, that I would like share with my mother when I was doing ceremony, and that the work that I did with you, there's so much resistance that comes up from many people, whether it's like parental, generational, whether it's someone who's just, I have a woman now who's really wanting to do the work, and then every 3 days she'll call me and say, I want to push the date because there's resistance that comes up. And the number one thing I want to share with people who are listening is just, this conversation is about having an open mind to this specific style of work, because I do think from the studies you see about talk therapy, it's like you can gain in a session what 15 years of talk therapy will give you, right? Which is saving you a lot of money and a lot of time.
Correct. And
the other thing is that when you and I worked together, I remember how I was when I answered the door. And I was like, had my friend's pet, like, security animal with me. I was crying. I was already nervous. It was 7:30 in the morning. And you were like, okay, I've already arrived. And she's already like in the resistance. And the one thing I will tell people that I work with now who have some hesitancy is, if I could go back, and of course timing is a thing, like if I knew then what I know now, I would have dug you up 6 months earlier, totally. And there is a threshold to cross. And so just I want you to speak a bit to resistance that you see coming up. And then also the mindset of like, oh, this is a scheduled drug, and, how you decided on the specific medicines you did, and what the resistance is, how you're navigating resistance from people.
Yeah. So I think we have to look at the baseline of like, all things in the US are not just science based in terms of drug decisions. There's a lot of politics behind this. And so if we back up in the 70s, Nixon administration, anti-hippie, they wanted to repress and suppress all the Vietnam protesters. They had a lot at stake with that. And so they just carte blanche anything that was associated with the hippie, countercultural, anti-war protests, LSD, drugs, this, that. Hey, that's horrible. Hey, you're going to go crazy. And then there's propaganda, which our government, every government, issues plenty of propaganda to support whatever their agenda is. And it wasn't science-backed. And the science is overwhelming, both for the drug safety. If you look at one of the most popular, readily available drugs in America is alcohol. That is the most dangerous substance, according to the largest drug safety study ever done in Lancet 2010. Look it up. Alcohol, the rating is 72. MDMA is a 9, or ecstasy. LSD is a 7, and then mushrooms are a 6. So basically alcohol is 10 times, almost 10 times more dangerous than ecstasy, over 10 times more dangerous than LSD and mushrooms in terms of drug harm to users and to others. So that was the two measurements. And now, but there's this perception because of the anti-drug movement and the dare to say no drugs, which I was in the 80s and 90s, of like your brain is an egg.
This is your brain on drugs.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like an egg frying, like that doesn't sound good. And my guy I talked to today that signed up, he's a CEO, executive coach, had a huge exit for a company. Guess what? He's stuck in anxiety. He's like, Mike, I didn't want to mess up my brain or anything. And that was my fear. I binged. That's what I binged, the safety, the efficacy. I listened to probably 150 podcasts, read book after book, now became friends with 2 psychedelic neuroscientists, like to learn the stuff to make sure, because I was like, my brain's working pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose that. My wife's, she's got a brilliant brain, but it was a little stuck. And I was also a little stuck in other ways, but these medicines, when appropriately used in the right container, man, they're smart drugs. They actually enhance. Robert Grant says his IQ went up. He thinks it went up 17 to 20 points after he did psilocybin. And I see my intuition, my intelligence in terms of a comprehensive look is way more online since I do this, because now I'm connected to my heart more. I'm attuned to my intuition, my emotions. I'm attuned to my spirit more deeply. I'll do new stuff that I've never done before in sessions pretty much every month. I'm like, oh, where did that come from? And it works. I'm like, oh, okay. But it's a new tool in my toolbox or something.
Yeah.
And so you're just gaining more access to who you really are and the fullness of who you are. But again, you do need a safe container for these altered states, because you can get re-traumatized if you're not aware of what might happen and the sensations. And then once you feel it and you're good, then you can start experimenting a little recreationally if you want, or doing your own self-guided journeys. But they're still not going to be as deep typically as a guided session or ceremony, because you're on the inside of the bottle. It's hard to read the label. But the nature of these medicines I think of this medicine coupled with, whether it's Tony Robbins type stuff or NLP or IFS or somatic or all this other neuroscience of how our nervous system works, how our brain works, and how to get it from, I look at my work, it's to get people from a traumatized or stuck state to their best self. And sometimes they're at all ends of the spectrum. They're maybe pretty good and they just want to get to great. Beautiful. I don't need to clean up trauma if it's already pretty cleaned up. We can prime your nervous system for your best. But this basically gives you guaranteed access to your subconscious mind in a safe, loving, effective way. That to me is one of the biggest breakthroughs of our lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the way that the amygdala goes offline and the fear center shifts for that period of time. There just was a tangible moment in my session and when I'm with clients where there's just like this moment of, whether it's physically audible or not, like this moment of exhale, this moment of landing, this moment of saying, oh, wait a second, here I am. Yeah. And here's my nervous system down-regulated. Yeah. And here's my ability to actually see the forest through the trees. Yeah.
And what you're speaking of too, and you coupled with, like I look at this medicine, the medicine work is a tool to be used in conjunction with all the other tools. You don't build a house with a single tool.
Yeah.
And to be able to get the nervous system into a parasympathetic prime, it's like get the junk out of the trunk, get all the cancer out of your body in this energy side so that you can show up in your highest and fullest. Like this just gives us a pathway to do it with much less friction, much less work, greater ease and flow, and greater joy. Like I'll work with people on some of the hardest, heaviest stuff, like childhood rape or whatever. And at the end of it, they're like, Mike, this was one of the best days of my life. And I'm like, we just worked through your massive traumas that you haven't been able to touch for 20 years.
Because there's so many protector parts coming on. There's so much like disassociation from it or whatever's happening to the specific person. The other thing I want to shout out to people is like there are many people that I know have come to me and said, well, I've tried this stuff on my own and I've done this and it's like this is a beautiful thing that I want to reiterate that it's like it's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle. And it's just, even with me, I would always prefer to have someone there because you're like the divining rod as a guide, or the divining rod to say, what direction are we going to go? Or, hey, let me pull you back in from like where you just went off in the corner. And then during the integration process, which I think it's important for us to talk about integration as well, then you have the opportunity to continue to reflect back on the person you sat with, because many of my clients are forgetting some of the pinnacle moments they're having.
Yeah.
And just to be able to remind them of that. So do you want to speak a little bit to just integration and connection through,
Yeah. So like,
or maybe just like overviewing a little bit of what a session feels like with you, you know?
So session for me, like yesterday I did a session with 3 executives from YPO, or 3 business owners. And so it was about 6 hours. We did 3 doses of medicine, primarily MDMA on dose 1 and 2. Well, I gave one guy only psilocybin, but that was because of some of the SSRIs and drugs, antidepressants and other medicines that he was taking. So you have to check for drug interaction and work with Dr. Ben, of course, on that. But a session, you know, we're working through as the medicine kicks in, then I'm doing breath work and we're doing intention setting, and we're doing a deeper meditation to kind of get you out of your head and into your body. And then I literally ask my clients, let's imagine that we're in a big empty cafe and you're walking in, your higher self is walking in. We're going to ask your subconscious mind to show you a memory from the past, a moment in time, an emotion that has been overwhelming, scary, difficult, that you've been holding on to and not been able to release. And let's watch that scene. Let's see yourself in that moment. And then now you're not fully in it because you're watching it. You're not in it. And while you're watching, I'm going to invite that part of you to come out, because there's all these different parts of our psyche. Think of like, we want all the parts of Kristin, all the parts of Mike to be rowing in the same direction. That's when you find deep alignment and someone's personal power showing up in the fullness, because there's no wavering on the inside, right? You're just all fully aligned. You think of a Michael Jordan in the finals or Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. He is fully aligned. He's not somewhere else. He's all here, or she's all here. And so you want to work with that part, and then I bring that part out. Then we're going to basically inner child work of loving on, creating space for that part to express his or her thoughts, feelings, emotions, and then repattern, meaning inviting that part to step into a new purpose. And so your higher self might speak with love and intention and appreciation, like, hey, thank you so much for getting me here. Like one of the clients yesterday, he's driven by so much anxiety, and he's built his whole business, which he's pretty successful, built his whole business around being anxious and being afraid of what might happen. So managing those risks. But then if that part leads his family life, he's driving his wife nuts. He's driving his kids.
You're like hypervigilance all the time.
Yeah, it's too stressed, too micromanaging, too all this. And so that part needs to take a break when he's in family time. And he needs to learn how to shift into playful, loving dad mode. And in this case, he nicknamed one of the playful, loving, tender version of himself, Grandpa. And so Grandpa, when he's Grandpa at home, he is loving and connected, doesn't need to control everything. And so you got to also learn, like, each part has a role to play, but some of our parts are way overactive. Like I have a get shit done Mike. Get shit done Mike, he drives my wife bonkers. And he's not pleasant. He's got kind of that German energy of intensity and efficiency and discipline and all that. And that's just too much.
Yeah.
And I need my playful, loving, tender dad and all that jazz when I'm at home.
Yeah. And having all these parts like sitting around the same table and not, because there's this notion, I think, of people being like, I hate this part of me, I want to get rid of it. And it's like, that's the reverse of the integration. It's like, how do you give it a seat at the table, but it's just not screaming the loudest?
Yeah.
You know, how do you make it feel seen and heard? And we talked a bit about trauma as well, but I know that there's the ways they're working with a lot of these CEOs, C-level executives, et cetera. This is about performance, even for people who have either cleared some things with you in an initial session or just really want to step into their professional prowess.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole optimization right there.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also building your nervous system's capacity to handle the next level of stress or next level of opportunity or responsibility. Like one of the guys I talked to yesterday, he's heavily involved in getting food to Gaza.
Wow.
And he's one of the key players. But he's like, you know, I've had weeks where I was shot at by Israelis and shot at by Hamas. And he's like, you know, basically running a humanitarian organization. He's carrying a rifle or a machine gun. He's over there because of what's crazy happening.
Yeah.
And he told me yesterday in our discovery call, he's like, if I don't get $11 million by Monday, I'm effed. And because of his organization and all this stuff. And but he is like so stressed. And I was probing him. I was like, are you on the edge of a nervous breakdown? Or not once your operating system, your human operating system gets to about 100%, and you start sliding over 102, 105%, you're either going to have a collapse, a burnout, or some sort of breakdown, he's like, I'm right there.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so we got to back in, like work back to get at least 30% of your operating system available, because otherwise you're going to be, if you fall, some people never recover from a burnout.
We've had some beautiful conversations within the mentorship group that I'm in with you, and people, guest speakers coming on to talk about the various different ways that people are working with all these high level executives. And even like what I see, even in the breath and cold space and my mentorship that I'm bringing people in to do more breath work, more cold exposure.
Yeah.
They're working with police officers and people who are like on the front lines, detectives who have captured, 20 years of watching like some of the most horrific things ever, and officer involved shootings and whatnot. And while I see lots of pivotal change in the breath and also the cold space, there's some notion about where the microdosing and where the MDMA and where some of these other tools work with people's bodies. And even at a level that's like, these are people, men and women who are working in the police force. And also we're all very clear that there's something to navigate around that, the language and the usage of this, but they're finding clinical healing for the catastrophes that they continue to see, right? So I think it's taking all kinds into consideration, right? As this conversation comes up where people would love for you to share your thoughts on what you see when, like, I have friends that are like, I've done 22 ayahuasca journeys this year and I'm like almost to the crux of my healing, and like what you feel about some of that.
For me, healing is 4 layers, and transformation is 4 layers. It's psychological, it's emotional, and it's somatic, and it's spiritual. And like ayahuasca often really hits the spiritual purpose. It may not hit the psychological. Or like I was at an ayahuasca ceremony in Peru in July, and I had 3 people that I could tell that they had different parts that had come. It was more of a psychological thing that was coming online and opening up, and they were really actually stuck. One of them was my roommate. I sat down and did a 45-minute parts work, and he thanked me later and was like, Mike, that was one of the best parts of the whole weekend, the whole week. And so
you're always so in service, and this is the thing too, right? It's like your flag is on to be like, I have to help. It doesn't matter what's going on. I'm still going to like interject. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And that's where I'm not saying that I have it all figured out either. And there's parts of like the spiritual component that I need to lean more into. My gifts are very heavily psychological, emotional, somatic, and somewhat spiritual. But in that moment and over that week, there's, those 3 people, they, in addition to the ayahuasca wasn't going to take them there enough. Mm-hmm. It was opening up other stuff that was really good. It opened up great stuff for me, but they needed the psychological and the emotional part because they were really stuck. And then I integrated with the somatic to make sure with breath that their body has received that this part is integrated. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So if something is not complete on all 4 levels, it's not complete.
And then people may be out there just searching and searching and searching, or repeating the same thing, trying to get a different response.
And you see it where people over rely on the medicines too. The medicines create the opening. I look at the medicines, create a portal. I want to step in that portal. I got a backdoor access to your programming. I want to help you with your awareness and your support, reprogram as much code, as much junk, get the bad code out, get the new code in. And bad code is just like stuck. There's no bad parts, but getting the energy and emotions from the hard stuff of life, process, and then also, help you identify, own how great you are, own how powerful you are, how loving, how loved you are, how capable you are. You're called to this path, this purpose, whatever it may be. I want you to step more fully into that with a deeper level of knowingness, certainty, and confidence. And medicine allows me to go 10 or 100x further.
And you've worked now with just such a range of humans, from some of the biggest trauma cases to, people who, in namesake, I'm sure, you signed an NDA to work. Yeah. And I just would love for you to share a couple like anonymous changes or jumps in trajectory or shifts that you see from people doing this work. Yeah. So anyone who's listening can kind of get an understanding about where and what can happen to the body, the psyche, the somatic response.
Yeah. So a beautiful example, I'll call her Annie. She was a speaker at an event that I was at. And one of the other speakers at the event was one of my VIP clients. And this person introduced me to her and kind of put in a good word. But we went to dinner one night and I could tell, and she had a lot of sexual trauma. She unfortunately was raped multiple times by an older cousin under the age of 10 because he had been shown like sexual stuff from an older family member, and it was just like nasty stuff. So we did a session in Toronto. Her cousin joined that session who had also experienced the same thing, but the session focus was on Annie. And while we're there, actually, she's in her early 30s. You'd hug her, and it was like hugging a board, stiff, like just braced, right? At the end of the session, and we spent probably an hour and a half, 2 hours working through the significant sexual trauma parts. And again, coded with MDMA, so her nervous system feels safe. And that's why it's so powerful for sexual trauma, is you're coded with this feeling of I am safe, I am loved, and it's still emotional. Like she's still crying, I'm still crying, everyone's crying. Emotions are still coming through, but they're not overwhelming and they're not re-traumatizing, as long as I keep her out of reassociating into that version, which I did. So we're working through it. By the end, she gives me a big hug, and it's like hugging a pillow. And then I saw her like 8 months later here in Austin. She was at an event in Austin, and we just sat down, and she was like so warm and connected, and gave me you could feel the softness in her spirit and her body. And so like her body physiologically changed from I'm under attack, I haven't processed this overwhelming trauma for 23 years at that point, to 8 months later, still soft, still connected, still present. And that energy, that stuck, frozen trauma was gone from one session.
Yeah.
Right. At that time, she's like, Mike, and I know what I want to do in the next session. And she already had like the next thing of belief in herself.
Yeah.
That she wants to call forth for her next part of her journey. So I see beautiful things like that happen really every week.
Yeah. So it's incredible to feel into that part of the container. And just from a leadership standpoint and perspective, it's like bringing this work to the table for communities at large that are like, you work with 3 people or you're working with several people. You're working, I just want to shout out, you're working with people who are intercompany connected and coming to you from that perspective because of the work you did in executive coaching beforehand.
Yeah, I love executive retreats as well, and doing like the whole teams. I've also I've done family sessions. Yeah. Like the Saturday, like I've worked a lot with the mom and dad, and now I'm doing their 19-year-old son who's been pretty closed off and battling a little depression. He's not fully aware of it. And it just ripples out. Like I had another client on Tuesday, female, 36 years old, really amazing leader in her world. Mom, 2 kids, had some postpartum with the NAD, got her energy way back. But then she texts me afterwards, like, Mike, that was the best day ever. And me and my husband had the most connected, beautiful conversation and energy we've ever had that night. And so we do our integration call in 2 days. So I can't wait to see how it's continued. But it's like, it just opens up a new capacity for what it can feel like to be you, the joy, the love, the presence. And it allows you to go to the heights of the fullness of the expression of you in a way that I don't see anything else.
Yeah. And when you're working with couples specifically, the notion of empathy.
Yeah. Oh, dude, the empathetic, and we get so activated in parts and triggers. Like,
so that's how we find the love in our lives. The people who are going to poke the deepest.
Yeah. And that are going to activate us the most, give us the most work to do. I married one of those. Yeah. But I look at triggers as just a sign you're not done yet. But yeah, MDMA is magic for that. And also mushrooms and LSD can be beautiful for working with some of that. But like MDMA especially helps you actually hear and see each other without being activated. And then it starts building that empathy bridge from one heart to the other.
Yeah. When people are out like looking for a coach in this regard, I know that there's a handful of people and a limited number, but like what are the things that they should be looking for from, just I want to say like the interview or like having that conversation with someone to make sure that there's a good fit, that there's consent, that there's, other safety safeguards in place?
It depends on the objective, but I would say like, for example, if or since there could be some deeper levels of trauma or emotion that are there, then definitely a trauma-informed practitioner that has a good baseline
as well.
Yeah, and you too. So that's a key criteria. Is there knowing and trust? Does your body want to open up to this human being, even if he or she is or it feels scary? Like my session on Tuesday, client came in and she didn't want to, or when I got to her house, she did not want to share with me some of the deeper stuff because she didn't want to feel shame or embarrassed or fear of judgment of some of the things she was navigating. But eventually her body said, yeah, I need to open up. What the hell? Let's go for it. And that they have a deeper understanding of what you're navigating. And then they are not one size fits all in terms of like medicine or in terms of experience. Like, this is highly nuanced work. In my book, I'm not going to give it. Like my session with 3 guys yesterday, 3 business owners, very successful in what they do, 3 different sets of trauma. 2 of them are on different medications. All 3 of them had a different medicine and different medicine stack. And I guided them a little bit differently. And it was like a little complicated because it's like, it's more ideal to give everyone the same medicine, hitting the same way and the same sort of experience. But I had one guy over in the corner doing the headphones with psilocybin only, inward journey only. I had another guy, 2CB and MDMA, and another guy, MDMA, psilocybin. So I was adapting the protocol for their different needs. And that takes some skill, it takes some practice but you might meet someone that's just a Bufo practitioner.
Yeah.
And then if Bufo is what you need, great. It's like you meet a doctor and all they know is surgery.
They're going to be like, we should have an operation.
Yeah. Well, but a chiropractor might fix that back issue without surgery.
Yeah, absolutely. And the care and concern with which I see you always put into, I also want to shout out to the listeners who are hearing this this is Mike Zeller, and not to put you on a pedestal, but you've done a lot of the work and you've wrangled an army of professionals that I continue to get to meet when I get a chance to come and do some breath and cold facilitation around your incredible retreats and to work with you in this mentorship container. Just understanding the people that you've put around you, you've surrounded yourself with in the areas that you're like, I want to make sure I've safeguarded for contraindications, having a pharmacologist. I think if someone's listening and they go to someone and it feels a little bit like, not much of an intake process, just show up at this place and time, or we're going to be in the Amazonian rainforest, or like if there isn't a bit of care going into the process of intake and then care going into the in-space process, well, someone's really holding that container. And someone who has some skills and certification, it isn't always about, and we didn't mention this part too, which is like when you work with a therapist, quite often they are not allowed legally or in their state to touch or to be connected. And of course,
unless they're trained with a special certification. Yeah.
But yeah, unless you're what?
Unless you have special certifications. I have a certification that I can touch you.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the power of touch, the oxytocin, the somatic experiencing is so very different. And so I want to honor all of like the work and the trajectory that you've been on and the magic that the universe gave you to get to this space where you have surrounded yourself with all of these people that are resources for you and continue to be resources for me.
Yeah, thank you.
So that people feel like they can safely work with you. And I think that's like one of the most important red flags with the listeners, if it feels very like loosey-goosey and that the person, or if the person's pressuring you to do the work, right? Yeah. You must do combo because this is the answer to all of your life's problems and all of that, or it feels very salesy. I think that there's something in there that is like shop around.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because, I do referring out sometimes too, if I think something's like too big above my, current status or this, I've sent clients and been like, hey, let's try to work on this client together or something, because I feel like it's a deeper case to try to navigate.
At the end of the day, it's like, we can only guide people as far as we've gone. And so I'm still doing the work. I'm still learning my next level of mastery, my next level of ego mastery, of submitting it, like getting my ego out of the way, my attachments to certain paradigms, and even and marriage is a great space for I'm learning to regulate myself even more. And I'm like, I think my wife this morning, I'm like, babe, you continue to challenge me to rise to that next level. And it's okay. I'm not upset about it. I like the challenge. I don't like the harshness sometimes.
The delivery is always
delivery is we can work on. But so there's always a next level. So someone doing the work and they're making the progress. And then the results, you look for someone with great results too. All my average client sends me 3 or 4 referrals. So that's why I don't even advertise. I don't even have an official website for this work. I don't need to. And I kind of like it that way right now.
Well, because the client experience, and it's like a verbal passing of the baton and testimonial. So they know what they've experienced. They share with someone. They know that where that person may be in a need for growth, and then they know it's a good fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like someone like yourself too, you're doing the work, you're learning, you're studying. You already had a beautiful set of tools.
Yeah.
And now this is just another powerful tool that enhances all your other tools. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the download, one of my breathwork mentor, Casper, will always be like, downloads from the universe or random thoughts, because we don't really know where it's coming from, the quantum, or it's just coming from internal. Yeah. But one of the most beautiful moments where I knew that there was a baseline of understanding was in my session and working with you, and in the main first session that we did, where I had what I would say, and I don't know if you remember, you work with thousands of people, but that I was like, I had a moment of clarity and sobriety, or whatever you want to call it, that I was like, Mike, you can't do this work alone. I feel like I need to do this work with you in some way. I'm going to shadow you, or I don't know what it is. And I was like, you can talk about this with me tomorrow. I'm still going to try to talk you into it. We can get back to what we're working on with the parts. But like, I have to say this to you because there's the pivotal, if I can stress nothing else to people who are listening about the work with you specifically, is I've worked with some of the other coaches in the mentorship and I trust all of them wholeheartedly. But the work with you specifically, there is just like that indescribable thing I talked about in the beginning. There is a moment where you recognize as like a human being and you're out of your mind so much and you're so in your body that you feel slightly unstoppable, or you say, holy shit, I'm the human right now that I was born into this world to be. And how do I anchor that, right? How do I anchor that in this session with this practitioner in the integration process and all of those parts you bring to the table so that people can continue to anchor that. Yeah. And this is why I think it's so, so important. And I never would have in my life with my really conservative mother would have ever said, hey, Mom, this is the big, I've mentioned this to you. She's like, you'll do combo, or you'll try MDMA, or you like toad poison, or like this molecule in a lab. She called me and said, are you using a rape drug? I'm confused. And I was like, that's done. But like, this is what comes up, right? You Google it and you get what you get. And I had a long conversation with her, obviously, but it's like, you won't put SSRIs in your body when you're going through the biggest, because I went through the biggest anxiety and depression, as you know, suicidal ideation of my life in that period of my life. And that shift of making someone or having someone understand, or at least be open-minded enough to say, correct, I won't take SSRIs because I have a specific belief. This is no slight on anyone taking them. I just wanted to find another solution. And something that would work more effectively. Yeah. So having that understanding that there are many different tools in the arsenal 100%. And really, pushing through to get to that moment, because all of the work and the challenge and the resistance lands and you go, oh shit, this is the thing. Yeah. 100%. And I get to see that with you. Like, I'm so blessed, and not to gush over you, but I'm gushing over you. I'm so blessed to be connected with you, and also to watch your work, even in this last year, like you're very good at doing. You're amazing at doing. And I know that you know that, but I get to continue to see you be in being with people in a way that just cracks everyone's heart open. And really, you're one of the first mentors I've ever worked with that shows up in a way that is so vulnerable and authentic, and is never afraid to be like, I don't know, but let's try this. Or because everybody's psyche is different, and you say quite often you're doing a little like, neurosurgery rewiring of the psyche. Yeah. And so, fuck yeah. I know your trajectory has been a lifelong learning, but I'm so stoked that the universe pushed you into this corner of your peak extraction. I just really am. Yeah. And I want more and more people to be able to experience like the grace and the love and the professionalism that you bring to the table. Before I ask you the last question, is there anything else you feel like is an important key point to share around either red flags or integration or people's trajectory here?
The biggest thing I would say, the last thing that I would add, I guess, is there's often just an invisible, it can be an energetic, an emotional, psychological, spiritual, even ancestral barrier to the fullest expression of who you are. And the medicines, this work combined with the somatic, combined with all the stuff that we're talking about, it just helps reveal what is the blockage and how to move it away so that you can, all the parts of you, all your energy can row in the same direction. The fullest expression, like kind of that yearning for all of us as human beings to some extent, especially high achievers, though, is what's the fullest expression? Me at life to the full. Even the Christian expression, John 10:10, I've come that you may have life to the full. That's my yearning. This just helps us get there faster and almost guarantee that we can get there. I'm not going to say guarantee, but this is the closest I've seen to being able to pretty much guarantee that if someone stays in the path, and that's why human consciousness is rising right now, and we need it in this divisive age of so much trauma that's happening and so much transition that our world's in. So we're in a beautiful season. And I think this is going to be a key part of raising the consciousness of humanity and raising love.
Yeah.
You know, we can eradicate so much suffering, like the worst cases of suffering. It is essentially available to us all, but we have to courageously be willing to explore.
Absolutely. All that joy and all that peace and all that love.
Yeah.
I always close with this question, which is if you could go back and have a conversation with Mike Zeller, 10 to 15 years old, and deliver a message to that part to say, this is how I know that you can step into like the healthiest, fullest, optimized expression of you. If you could go back and give that 10 to 15-year-old a little piece of advice, what would it be?
I would say two things. You have what it takes. Secondly, explore the realm of the heart and emotions, even though your family of origin did not understand and harness emotions well. And thirdly, keep your eyes open for beautiful, sacred medicines.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. You are one of the most favorite men that I have on this planet, honestly, really. And so thanks for sharing your spirit and your soul and your story and your fabulous sneakers, which you always tell me, like, sneaker game is strong. Can you let people know where to find you since you're like a hidden secret to some?
Yeah, I'm ramping up my social media again eventually. The Mike Zeller on all the social media channels. I do respond most of the time to messages. So also you can email me, mike@mikezeller.com. I also have 14 tools to rewire your nervous system rapidly on neurorewiring.com, and mikezeller.com as well. So
beautiful. I will plug all those links in the show notes. And then also you have full permission, listeners, to just begin stalking him now or writing me and saying, how do I get to Mike? And I'll make sure that you get to him.
Well, and we need to do some things together too. So collaborate, because you have so many great gifts that I love seeing and learning from your gifts as well.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks so much for being here, and more time for us.
Likewise. See you soon.
Great.
Yes, thank you for joining us here on Well Power. You can submit questions, learn more, shop incredible brands, and connect with me at wellpower.life, or follow me on social at biohacking.breath.cold. From comfort to courage, friends, we're doing it. Any foul language you hear is not approved by my mother.